Okay, so let's talk about something that you might not have even considered that could be impacting your energy levels. Insulin resistance. Like those days, when you're just hitting the wall, even after you've had, what should be a good night's sleep. Or maybe you are just craving carbs and sweets like crazy. Well, this could be a sign that your body isn't processing energy as efficiently as it should be.
Yeah.
To help break this down, we have our science whiz here, ready to kind of like decode all the mysteries of insulin resistance for us.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of people are walking around with insulin resistance and don't even know it. It's like a silent energy thief, just kind of quietly, like, stealing your energy.
Oh, that's kind of scary. Okay, but before we dive into, all of the hows and whys of it all, let's start with the basics. What exactly is insulin resistance?
It all really comes down to how our cells use glucose for energy. Just think of glucose as the fuel that our body runs on, like gasoline for a car. After we eat, glucose from our food enters our bloodstream.
Okay, so far so good. We've got the fuel. But how does it actually get to where it needs to go?
That's where insulin comes in. Insulin is like a key that unlocks the doors of our cells, allowing glucose to get in and provide energy.
Ah, okay. So insulin is basically like the delivery service for glucose.
Exactly. But in the case of insulin resistance, the delivery system, kind of hits a snag. It's like those cell doors have changed their locks and the insulin key just no longer fits properly.
Oh, okay. So even though there's plenty of glucose available, the cells can't access it.
That's the problem, right? The glucose just ends up stuck in the bloodstream while the cells are starving for energy.
So that's why people with insulin resistance feel so drained, huh? It's like their body's gas tank is full, but the engine can't access the fuel.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. And, this energy deficit can manifest in a lot of different ways. Persistent fatigue, brain fog, those dreaded afternoon slumps, even waking up tired after a full night's sleep. Your body is literally crying out for energy.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, what about those cravings, like intense cravings, especially for carbs and sweets? Are those connected to insulin resistance as well?
Absolutely. Remember, those cells are desperate for energy, and the fastest and easiest way for them to get it is through simple sugars. So your body starts sending out strong signals, kind of urging you to eat. Eat those cookies, eat that pasta, candy, you name it, anything that can give you that quick fix energy.
So it's like my body is hijacking my brain, making me crave the very things that are contributing to the problem.
Pretty much. And this creates kind of a vicious cycle, right? You eat the carbs, your blood sugar spikes, but because your cells aren't really utilizing the glucose efficiently, you experience an energy crash, which then leads to more cravings. And then the cycle just repeats.
Huh. Okay. This is all starting to sound a bit too familiar. But before we get too deep into like the doom and gloom of it all, let's talk about who's most at risk for developing this whole energy sapping condition.
Well, unfortunately, it's more common than a lot of people realize. Excess weight, especially around the abdomen, is, a big risk factor, but it's not the only one.
So it's not just about weight.
Not at all. A sedentary lifestyle, chronic stress, poor sleep quality and control, all of these can contribute to insulin resistance. And as we age, our cells naturally become a bit less sensitive to insulin too.
So basically, modern lifestyle, with all of its stress and lack of sleep and all the abundance of processed food we have, is, kind of a recipe for insulin resistance.
You could say that. Add in a family history of diabetes and, the risk increases even more. But, before you start to feel like it's totally out of your control, there is good news.
Okay, give me the good news. Give me the good news.
Insulin resistance is often reversible, especially in its early stages. By taking, proactive steps to kind of address the underlying causes, you can restore your body's natural ability to use glucose efficiently.
That's what I like to hear. So where do we even begin to turn this whole energy crisis around?
Well, let's talk about the power of nutrition.
Uh-oh. I have a feeling I know where this is going. More kale smoothies and chia seeds.
Well, those aren't bad ideas. But it's really more about, making some smart swaps and focusing on whole, unprocessed foods. For starters, ditch the refined carbs and added sugars. Think white bread, pastries, sugary drinks. Those are notorious for spiking blood sugar and contributing to insulin resistance.
Okay, got it. Out with the processed junk. What should we be replacing it with?
Fiber-rich foods are your new best friend. Think, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes. They slow down the absorption of glucose, preventing those big blood sugar spikes and crashes.
Okay, so it's all about keeping those blood sugar levels Nice and steady, like a smooth sailing ship instead of a roller coaster ride.
Exactly. And speaking of steady energy, don't underestimate the power of protein.
Protein. I usually associate protein with, building muscle, not necessarily energy levels.
Well, while it is true that protein is essential for muscle growth, it also plays a really important role in regulating blood sugar. Including protein with each meal helps stabilize blood sugar and keeps you feeling full and satisfied, which can help reduce those energy-zapping cravings.
That's interesting. So what kind of protein sources are we talking about?
Lean meats, fish, eggs, beans, lentils, nuts, and seeds. There are tons of options to choose from.
Got it. Okay, I'm taking notes here. Now there's one more food group I want to touch on. Fat. For years, we were told to avoid fat like the plague, but I've been hearing a lot lately about how healthy fats are actually good for us. Where do they fit into all of this?
You're right, that whole low-fat craze did a lot of damage. Healthy fats are absolutely essential for overall health, including insulin sensitivity.
Really? How so?
Well, they slow down digestion, which helps regulate blood sugar, and they help keep you feeling full and satisfied, which can help reduce cravings for those quick energy fixes.
So which fats should we be prioritizing?
Think avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, fatty fish like salmon, sardines. These are all great sources of healthy fats.
All right. I am officially giving fat a second chance. So we've talked about ditching the processed junk, embracing fiber and protein, bringing healthy fats back into the fold. But what about specific foods or spices that can actually boost insulin sensitivity? Do those exist?
They do. Nature has given us some amazing allies in this fight against insulin resistance. Cinnamon, for example, has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity and lower blood sugar levels.
Interesting. I usually just think of cinnamon as like a, delicious topping for my coffee or oatmeal.
It's definitely tasty, but it packs a powerful punch when it comes to blood sugar regulation. Turmeric is another winner. It's a really potent anti-inflammatory, and chronic inflammation can actually contribute to insulin resistance.
Gotcha. So we're talking about adding a sprinkle of cinnamon to our oatmeal, tossing some turmeric into our smoothies, loading up on those colorful fruits and veggies. Got it.
You got it. It's all about making, small, sustainable changes that you can stick with for the long haul. And speaking of sustainable changes, let's not forget about portion control and mindful eating. Even healthy foods can spike your blood sugar if you eat too much of them at once.
Right. It's all about quality and quantity. But let's be honest, diet alone isn't always enough. So where does exercise fit into this whole equation? I'll admit, I'm more of a Netflix and chill kind of person than, a gym rat.
You're not alone. But the good news is you don't need to be spending hours at the gym to reap the benefits of exercise when it comes to insulin sensitivity. Even moderate activity can make a huge difference.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this exercise for non-gym rats approach.
Walking is a fantastic place to start. Even just a brisk 10-minute walk after meals can significantly improve your blood sugar response.
10 minutes, that's totally doable.
Well,
What's happening in our bodies during those post-meal walks that's so beneficial?
walking helps your muscles use glucose for energy, which in turn reduces the amount of glucose circulating in your bloodstream. And the more you engage those muscles, the more sensitive they become to insulin.
So I'm actually training my muscles to get better at using glucose. That's pretty cool. Now, I've heard a lot about strength training being really beneficial for insulin sensitivity. Is there any truth to that?
Absolutely. Resistance training, whether you're lifting weights or using your own body weight, helps build muscle mass. And the more muscle you have, the more efficiently your body can use glucose.
So building muscle is like creating more glucose processing plants in our bodies.
You got it. It's like expanding your energy infrastructure.
I like that. So walking, strength training, those are both great options. What about high-intensity interval training, or HIIT? I've heard that can be really effective for improving fitness, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate for someone who's dealing with insulin resistance.
HIT can be a great option, but it's important to approach it with caution, especially if you're new to exercise or have any, underlying health conditions. The key is to listen to your body and not push yourself too hard too soon.
That's good advice for any type of exercise, really.
It is. And remember, consistency is more important than intensity. Aim for some form of movement most days of the week, even if it's just a short walk or a gentle yoga session.
This is all great information. But there's one crucial aspect of health that I haven't heard you mention yet, and it's something that I personally struggle with. Sleep. I'm a bit of a night owl, and I rarely get the recommended 7 to 9 hours. How does sleep tie into insulin resistance?
Oh, it's way more interconnected than you might think. When you're sleep deprived, your body produces more cortisol, the stress hormone. And as we discussed earlier, chronic stress can really wreak havoc on insulin sensitivity.
Hold on. So skimping on sleep is actually making my cells more resistant to insulin. Not good news for my already, limited sleep schedule.
I know, it's a tough reality. But even small improvements in your sleep hygiene can make a big difference.
Okay. I'm willing to try. But I need some actionable strategies because just get more sleep is like so much easier said than done.
I hear you. Consistency is key. Try to go to bed and wake up around the same time each day, even on the weekends, to help regulate your body's natural sleep-wake cycle. Limit screen time for at least an hour before bed, as the blue light emitted from devices can interfere with melatonin production, which is a hormone that helps regulate sleep.
So no more scrolling through social media in bed, huh?
It's tough, but your sleep will thank you for it.
Okay, I can try that. Any other sleep-enhancing tips?
Make sure your bedroom is cool, dark, and quiet. Consider using blackout curtains, earplugs, or a white noise machine to minimize distractions. And if you suspect you might have a sleep disorder, like sleep apnea, talk to your doctor. Untreated sleep disorders can significantly worsen insulin resistance.
Okay, I'm going to prioritize getting more shut-eye. But let's be real. There's another big stressor in my life that's probably not helping the situation. Stress itself.
You are so right to bring that up. Chronic stress is a major culprit when it comes to insulin resistance. When we're constantly stressed, our bodies pump out cortisol, and cortisol is basically insulin's arch nemesis.
It's like a domino effect. Stress leads to more cortisol. Cortisol worsens insulin resistance, and then I feel even more stressed because I'm exhausted and craving all the wrong food.
Exactly. It's a vicious cycle. But the good news is there are a lot of effective ways to manage stress and break free from this whole pattern.
Okay, I'm all ears. How do we combat this whole stress monster?
Mindfulness practices like meditation can be incredibly powerful for calming the mind and lowering cortisol levels.
I've heard good things about meditation, but I've always been a little intimidated by it. Is it really that effective?
It can be, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Even just 5 or 10 minutes of focused breathing can make a difference.
Okay, that seems manageable. What about some other stress-busting techniques?
Spending time in nature is another great way to de-stress. Even just a short walk in the park can do wonders for your mood and your cortisol levels.
I'm all about that. I always feel much more relaxed after spending time outdoors.
And don't underestimate the power of social connection. Spending time with loved ones, laughing, engaging in activities that you enjoy, these can all help reduce stress and boost your mood.
So it's about nurturing our mental and emotional well-being as much as our physical health.
Absolutely. It's all interconnected.
This is all great advice. We've covered so much here. Diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, all crucial components of improving insulin sensitivity. But I'm curious, are there any supplements that can help play a supportive role in this whole process?
There are, and one that you might find interesting is called GlucoTrust. It's formulated with a blend of natural ingredients that are, designed to support healthy blood sugar levels.
Okay, color me intrigued. Tell me more about this GlucoTrust. What makes it so special?
Well, one of the key ingredients is Junima sylvestre. It's an herb that's been used in traditional medicine for centuries to help balance blood sugar.
Junima sylvestre. That's a mouthful. How does it work?
It's believed to help reduce sugar cravings and support the body's natural ability to manage glucose. There's also chromium. It's an essential mineral that plays a role in enhancing insulin sensitivity.
So it's like giving my body a little extra support in the insulin department.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Think of it as kind of a gentle nudge in the right direction, working in synergy with those lifestyle changes we talked about.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm always a little bit cautious about supplements. Are there any potential side effects or interactions that I should be aware of?
It's always a good idea to talk to your doctor before starting any new supplement, especially if you have any underlying health conditions or are taking medication. GlucoTrust is generally well tolerated, but, it's always best to err on the side of caution.
That's great advice. It's all about working with your healthcare team to create a personalized plan that supports your individual needs. Now, I'm probably not the only one who's feeling a bit overwhelmed by all of this information. If someone's listening and thinking, where do I even begin? What's the first step they should take?
I always recommend starting with kind of a self-assessment. Take a look at your current lifestyle, your diet, your exercise habits, your sleep patterns, stress levels. Which areas could use a little bit of improvement?
So it's about kind of taking inventory of our habits and identifying those areas where we can make some positive changes.
Exactly. And don't try to do everything at once. Pick one or two areas to focus on, and once you've made some progress, you can gradually add more healthy habits.
This is all about creating sustainable change, not just overwhelming ourselves with a complete lifestyle overhaul overnight.
Precisely. And remember, small changes can have a really big impact over time. Don't underestimate the power of consistency.
I love that. It's about progress, not perfection. Now, speaking of progress, how can we track our journey and, know if we're moving in the right direction?
Well, pay attention to how you feel. Are you experiencing more stable energy throughout the day? Are those cravings subsiding? Are you sleeping better? These are all signs that your efforts are paying off.
So it's about tuning into our bodies and noticing those subtle shifts. Our bodies are constantly giving us feedback. We just need to learn how to listen.
Exactly. And if you're working with a healthcare provider, they can monitor, objective markers like your fasting blood glucose levels, your HbA1c, and your insulin levels. These lab tests can provide a lot of valuable insights into your metabolic health and how well your body's regulating blood sugar.
It sounds like a combination of subjective and objective measures is key, like how we feel, but also what the data is telling us.
You got it. And remember, progress isn't always linear. There might be ups and downs along the way. The key is to stay consistent with those healthy habits and not get discouraged if you have an off day or two.
That's reassuring. It's all about the long game, not about being perfect all the time. Now, we've talked a lot about the physical aspects of insulin resistance, but I want to touch on something that I think is often overlooked, the mental and emotional side of things.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Insulin resistance and mental health are very much connected. We've talked about how chronic stress can worsen insulin resistance, but, the reverse is also true. Insulin resistance can negatively impact your mood, your energy levels, your overall mental well-being.
It's like this vicious cycle. So what can we do to break free from that cycle and support both our physical and mental health?
Well, a lot of the strategies that we've already discussed for improving insulin sensitivity can also have positive effects on mental health. Mindfulness practices like meditation and deep breathing exercises can be really helpful for reducing stress, improving mood, and even enhancing insulin sensitivity.
I'm starting to see a theme here. It's about taking a holistic approach, addressing all aspects of our well-being, not just focusing on the individual symptoms in isolation.
That's right. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of our physical, mental, and emotional health.
So it's not just about managing, a specific condition. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports overall well-being.
You got it. It's about nourishing our minds, bodies, and spirits.
I love that. Now, speaking of nourishment, I want to touch on something that's often a source of stress and anxiety for people: social situations involving food. Whether it's a dinner party, a holiday gathering, even just a casual lunch with friends, navigating food choices when you're trying to manage insulin resistance can feel like super overwhelming.
That's so true. And I think it's important to remember that you're not alone in this. A lot of people are dealing with similar challenges, even if they don't always talk about it openly.
So what advice would you give to someone who's feeling anxious about navigating those social food situations?
First and foremost, be kind to yourself. It's okay to feel a bit overwhelmed or anxious. Remember, you're doing the best that you can.
That's a great reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in the pressure to be perfect and then, beat ourselves up when we inevitably fall short.
Exactly. And remember, it's just one meal. One meal won't make or break your progress.
Okay. I'm starting to feel a little bit more relaxed already, but are there any practical tips for actually navigating those food-centric social situations?
Absolutely. If you're going to a restaurant, take a look at the menu online beforehand so you can kind of plan your meal in advance. This can help reduce anxiety and just make it easier to make those healthier choices.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I often feel so pressured to make a decision, right then and there, which sometimes leads to more impulsive choices.
I know exactly what you mean. Another helpful tip is to focus on filling your plate with those protein and fiber-rich foods first. This is going to help you feel more satisfied and less likely to overindulge in, those less healthy options.
So load up on the veggies and the lean protein before reaching for that bread basket.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to speak up and ask for modifications. Most restaurants are more than happy to accommodate special requests, like, substituting steamed vegetables for fries or requesting a sauce on the side.
I think a lot of people are kind of hesitant to ask for modifications because they don't want to be seen as difficult or high maintenance, but it's really about advocating for your health and well-being.
You are so right. It's about prioritizing your needs and not being afraid to communicate them.
I love that. And if you're attending a potluck or a gathering where you don't really have control over the menu, consider bringing a healthy dish to share. That way you'll know that there's at least one option that, aligns with your goals.
That's a great strategy. And remember, it's okay to indulge occasionally. Depriving yourself completely can lead to those feelings of resentment and actually make it harder to stick to your healthy habits in the long run.
So it's all about finding that balance, making healthy choices most of the time, but also allowing ourselves to enjoy those special occasions without guilt or stress.
You've got it. It's about creating a sustainable lifestyle that supports both your physical and mental well-being.
This has been so helpful. I feel like I'm already starting to kind of reframe my whole approach to food in social situations. It's not about deprivation. It's about making conscious choices that support my well-being. But, it's easy to get caught up in all the things that we should or shouldn't be doing. Sometimes I think we forget to simply enjoy the experience of eating.
I absolutely agree. Mindful eating is such a powerful tool, and it's something that we often overlook in our fast-paced world. It's about slowing down, savoring each bite, and paying attention to the flavors, the textures, the aromas of our food.
It sounds so simple, yet I rarely take the time to actually experience my food. I'm usually like rushing through meals, multitasking, barely even tasting what I'm eating.
It's a really common habit, but one that can have a big impact on our relationship with food and our overall health. Mindful eating can not only enhance our enjoyment of food, but it can also help regulate our appetite, improve digestion, and even reduce stress.
Wow, I didn't realize there were so many benefits to simply like slowing down and paying attention. But how do we actually cultivate those mindful eating habits? It sounds kind of like abstract.
It's easier than you might think. Start by creating a calm and inviting eating environment. Turn off the TV, put away your phone, and just choose a relaxing spot where you can focus on your meal.
So it's about creating a mini retreat for each meal.
Exactly. Treat it as kind of a sacred time to nourish your body and your mind. Then engage all of your senses. Notice the colors, the aromas, the textures of your food. Take a moment to appreciate the effort that went into preparing it, whether it was you or someone else.
This is starting to sound more like an art appreciation class than a nutrition lesson.
And that's not far off. Mindful eating is about bringing that same level of appreciation and awareness to our food. As you take each bite, chew slowly and savor the flavors. Pay attention to how the food feels in your mouth, how it makes you feel.
I love this approach. It's about transforming eating from like a mindless act into a sensory experience.
Exactly. And as you practice mindful eating, you might start to notice that you naturally feel more satisfied with smaller portions. You'll also become more attuned to your body's hunger and fullness cues, which can help prevent overeating.
Okay, I'm definitely going to start incorporating mindful eating into my daily routine. It's such a simple yet powerful way to enhance our relationship with food and, just to improve our overall health. But, speaking of simple yet powerful, we haven't really talked much about the emotional side of insulin resistance. I know from personal experience that dealing with this condition can feel like incredibly frustrating and isolating at times.
You're absolutely right. The emotional aspect of insulin resistance is often overlooked, but it's incredibly important. It's not just about the physical symptoms. It's about how those symptoms make us feel about ourselves.
Exactly. It can be so disheartening to feel like your body's working against you no matter how hard you try.
And it's easy to fall into a cycle of guilt and shame, blaming ourselves for not having enough willpower or discipline.
Oh, I've definitely been there. It's like this inner critic constantly like berating me for my food choices or my, lack of energy.
And that negative self-talk can actually make things worse. Stress and negative emotions can further disrupt our hormonal balance and contribute to more insulin resistance.
So it's like we're fighting a battle on two fronts, the physical symptoms and the emotional turmoil.
That's a great way to put it. And that's why it's so important to address both. Along with all those lifestyle changes we've been talking about, it's so crucial to cultivate self-compassion and practice self-care.
Self-compassion, it's something I'm always preaching to others, but I often struggle to extend it to myself. How do we actually practice self-compassion, especially when we're feeling, frustrated or discouraged?
Well, you can start by acknowledging your feelings without judgment. It's okay to feel frustrated, overwhelmed, or even angry at times. These are normal human emotions.
So it's about allowing ourselves to actually feel our feelings, not trying to suppress them or deny them.
Exactly. Suppressing our emotions only makes them stronger. Instead, acknowledge them, validate them, and then gently redirect your focus towards something more positive.
Okay, I can see how that approach would be a lot more helpful than just, beating myself up for feeling a certain way.
Yeah.
What about self-care? What are some, specific self-care practices that can be helpful for someone who's dealing with insulin resistance?
Self-care can take so many different forms, and it's really about finding what works best for you. It could be something as simple as taking a warm bath, reading a good book, spending time in nature.
Those are all great ideas. It's about carving out time for those activities that nourish our souls and bring us joy.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of human connection. Reach out to a friend, a family member, a support group. Talking to someone who understands what you're going through can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we're not alone in this journey. There are people who care, people who understand, and resources available to help support us.
You got it. And sometimes just, talking about our struggles can help us feel less alone and more empowered to make those positive changes.
I love that. Now, I wanted to kind of circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the idea of working with a health care team. It sounds like this is a pretty crucial aspect of managing insulin resistance effectively.
It absolutely is, especially if you're dealing with, more severe insulin resistance or you have other underlying health conditions.
So who are kind of the key players on this healthcare team?
Well, your primary care physician is a good place to start. They can assess your overall health, run some basic blood tests, and, refer you to specialists if needed.
What about a registered dietitian?
A registered dietitian can be an invaluable resource. They can help you create a personalized meal plan that supports your blood sugar goals and provides all the nutrients your body needs.
It's like having a personal nutrition coach in your corner.
Exactly. And depending on your individual needs, you might also benefit from working with a certified diabetes educator, a therapist, or a personal trainer.
It sounds like a well-rounded team approach. It's really key to addressing all aspects of insulin resistance, the physical, the mental, the emotional.
Exactly. It's about creating a support system that empowers you to make sustainable changes and really achieve your health goals.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of insulin resistance, not just the science behind it, but also the emotional and lifestyle factors that play a role as well.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about insulin resistance, the more equipped you'll be to really take control of your health and make informed decisions that support your well-being.
So true. But I think we've covered just about everything we can squeeze into one deep dive. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listener? Any, final words of wisdom or encouragement?
I would just say this. You are capable of making positive changes. It's not always easy, but it's so worth it. By understanding the impact of insulin resistance and taking those proactive steps to address it, you're not only improving your physical health, you're also creating kind of a ripple effect that positively impacts every aspect of your life.
Beautifully said. And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into insulin resistance. Remember, knowledge is power. And by taking what you learned today and applying it to your own life, you can unlock a world of possibilities for, greater health, vitality, and well-being.
Here's to a brighter and healthier future.
Cheers to that. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Reach out to your healthcare team, connect with support groups, and surround yourself with people who uplift and inspire you. You've got this.
I think that's a really powerful message to end on. So to our listener, what is one specific change that they can make today, based on what we've talked about, to kind of start taking control of their insulin sensitivity and their energy levels? That's a great question. I would say, if you're feeling overwhelmed, just pick one thing. It could be as simple as swapping out that sugary soda at lunch for a glass of water, or maybe taking a 10-minute walk after dinner. Or even just, taking 5 minutes before bed to do some deep breathing exercises. Just start small and build from there.
I love that. It's all about those small, consistent actions that can lead to really, really huge results over time.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a fascinating deep dive, and I personally feel so much more empowered to take control of my own energy levels. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listener, thank you so much for tuning into the deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into all things health and wellness. Until then, take care and keep those energy levels high.